Are you so looking forward to our Friendsgiving dinner
Yeah, it's
this
gonna be great.
weekend?
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
It's going to be so fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody's excited about it too, and they're really on board with it, and it's good.
Yeah. Hope everybody dresses up with one of those awful sweaters.
I should have made it. Yeah.
We'll do that.
It's not too late to do that.
No, we'll do that for Christmas.
Okay.
Well, a little, we'll have a little Christmas
We
party.
could have them do fancy dress up, though. Haven't done that in a while.
You gonna ask them to dust things off?
Yeah.
How was your week?
A little long.
Yeah.
But good. I know that the kids have always, when we get to the end of a stretch like this, because we're going to go on break next week, so there's a lot of energy and anticipation for that, especially for our little guys who you put through a pretty good boot camp today. Tell me a little bit about that, because I only got to see bits and pieces. What led to it?
Well, when you got a classroom full of boys and we take a bunch of wiggle pants, okay, they need to get up and move around. So they didn't feel like listening today. So we worked on listening skills through activity. And that means putting pumpkins from one end of the building. Well, our building is from one end of the hallway to the other, and they got to carry them, and then they got to tie, and then they go back and forth. So we did the carrying of pumpkins. And then we did balance the cones on your head, because they have no balance. They have no
Awareness of their body and space in general.
Right. None.
Including our own.
Yeah,
especially our own. Yeah.
Wow, that kid's uncoordinated.
I know, it's bizarre.
So, you got to, and we understand you got to build those skills. So they had to carry a cup with a little puff ball on the top, and they had to do it nice and slow.
Which I'm sure
drove them nuts.
Struggled with.
Because they have to go back if they don't. And
yeah,
walking the lines, running in place, balancing the cones like on their heads, the soccer cones.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
How long did you spend on that?
About 30 minutes.
I was gonna say it was minutes. A while.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Sometimes you just need to stop all instruction, because that is instruction.
Yeah.
It's part of the instruction. You have to do it.
Yeah. Did that improve things for them for the end of the day?
Oh yeah. Yeah, they sat at their desks. They knew their bodies then. Yep. That's a good going to gym class and then coming into school.
Well, I was thinking, because we've been incorporating more physical activity in the morning. I didn't account for, though, when they start to get stronger and they actually move through things faster.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting the point of it, and they're zipping through things pretty quick now. So now we have to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit on how to add a little more challenge to it. So that they're getting that energy out, so that they can focus and get through the rest of the day, and the important instruction, that they gotta still carry out through the day. So
yeah, it's hard.
It's hard.
It is.
Yeah, because we have to have enough energy to get them through all that, and and we're trying to teach them, the discipline to get through that. And yeah, it's tough. I admire you for taking that on, because I know I handed off the little first grade boys to you, because I was just like, these guys need you, period. So
yeah,
I think you're doing a great job. I think we're going to start to see the results of that here coming up. But
yeah, and when you're training the teachers to move with it,
yeah,
when you implement something new, and you start working together with your staff, they have to be patient now, because you kind of change things up a little bit, where I'm letting the kids be a little bit more wiggly and a little bit more into their work, instead of being confined into a little tighter space of education, and letting your
having to sit for
and sit for
extended periods, and
yeah. So it's really neat to watch.
and then we have to deal with the super tired kid coming home.
Yeah.
But we send them home tired. I think most parents appreciate that, but it's part of the teacher's curse. So welcome to the teacher's curse. I'm Annie.
And I'm Kevin.
Today, I wanted to talk about one of the biggest concerns that we have when parents come to us and they're kind of on the fence about whether or not they want to enter our program. And that is the issue of socialization.
Right.
If they are going to get enough socialization
Mm-hmm.
in our program, because we work with a significantly smaller amount of students at a time. So this is something that we've heard from the beginning, things that parents coming from the public school system are generally concerned about. Not so much the homeschoolers. I think
No.
the homeschoolers love it because they go, oh gosh, they'll be able to interact with different kids, and
Right.
that's something they're looking for.
Yeah.
Coming from the public school, they see it as they're taking their kids away from something. And I wanted to kind of touch on that and debunk some of those concerns that parents have.
Yeah. Well, I think, it goes back to history. I mean, this is what we have taught them. And, times change and times move on where, people say, okay, we're going to homeschool, but, they think that they're confined to their home all the time or confined to just doing certain activities, which in some ways that's actually true. There was a time when they weren't involved into public schools where they could go play sports, they could go do, and it's a crime when they actually have to bring that up and make it a law or make it excessive for people to be able to go to their taxpayer schools, even though they homeschool. So they homeschool and they still put their money in for you, or they pod school, or they do whichever that might be, even if it's private school or anything else of that nature that's small, or Montessori's or anything else, right? So there's this belief that for some reason they're not going to get this socialization, and it's the most important thing. It's very important, which we're not going to downplay. It is, but in today's age, you have all of these extracurriculars that are outside of the inside and outside of the school districts, and I think it gives it a lot. But as far as kids in our program, we haven't seen that the case. Even if they transfer over, they still get to see their friends. They still get to see them in that capacity if their parents put them in band, if they put them in basketball, if they put them in and they can still integrate, and so they can get used to being actually.
Yeah. The thoughts that kind of go through my head when parents say that doesn't always come out of my mouth, but the thoughts that go through my head is, what kind of socialization
Right.
are you getting at the school that you think is more beneficial?
Right.
It, more so than being able to read and do math and have those literacy skills.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've also heard from a lot of parents who have been with us for a long time that the reason why they pulled their kids was because of how the other kids were acting.
Yeah.
The
Nonsense.
Yeah, there's a lot of nonsense going on. There's a lot of aggression that kids see. We have a parent that talked about he pulled up to pick up his kid one day from school, and there were just two like fourth graders cursing back and forth at each other in the schoolyard. And he said, what kind of socialization is that?
Mm-hmm.
And you and I have seen it as both being public school students, that there's a lot that goes on during the day when trying to move through the social aspect of school, especially in middle school and high school, and how that does affect your learning once you sit down in the classroom.
Yeah, because they're more concerned about what just happened in lunch
Exactly.
than they are in whatever math class they just went to. Or and there's like, well, they got to learn to shut it off, and they got to learn to do. But that's but kids used to come home and actually tell their parents what they actually did. They don't tell parents what they did anymore. Why would they tell them about any conversation of socialization that happened on the playground or anywhere else for that
Right.
matter?
Yeah. And I think sometimes there's fear that happens there too. There's, the, the peer pressure is significant among teenagers, especially. I think it's getting younger and younger.
Well, that's because of the modern technologies and the age that
Hmm.
we live in.
Yeah. So kids are being exposed to things.
Yeah, we got a call coming in because somebody didn't shut their phone off. Did we answer that? Do you think they heard us? Right? Talk about
Sorry.
socialization. They're on their phones all the time, right?
So kids are being exposed to things that they shouldn't be exposed to at younger and younger ages. Throw in the fact that there's no confidence in their ability to get through school.
Right.
Kids who want to learn, but see that their other classmates are not participating, most of them will follow the crowd. 1% will say, "No, I'm gonna do what's right." It's really hard to expect that from
Mm-hmm.
our kids.
Right.
Um, you know, uh, the other thing with you can argue that in homeschool, many homeschoolers would argue that they actually are able to provide more enriching socialization for their children because they're encouraging them to interact with all sorts of different people,
Right.
not just a bunch of kids that are their same age,
Mm-hmm.
same demographics,
Right.
um, and trying to work their way through how to navigate through such difficult and complex social hierarchies that form naturally,
Mm-hmm.
right? On playgrounds and whatever else. The things that the teachers might not be able to catch. And sometimes those things are perfectly healthy and natural, and we've all been through it and we all survived it. Um, I think that there's also a lot of dangerous things that happen too that affect longer term thinking and therefore longer term learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a different time. And even to speak to we have families that have multiple siblings in our in our school and what we do. And we teach them to separate when they come through the door that they're not sister and brother attitude. That goes away. And we teach them to navigate how to respectfully even work with their own siblings
Mhm.
where
As
we
classmates,
as
as
classmates.
colleagues
Yeah,
almost.
we'll say
Yeah.
colleagues, sure. And they have to learn to work together. And even the hardest times where we know at home or in other places they would be at each other's, throats and arguing about a topic or something of that nature. So we get to move them through that socialization within
Mhm.
their own families because we're really big on family. We're really big on we want you to be with that
Families
family
be able to stay together and
family. Yeah,
yeah, go
yeah,
through the program.
yeah. And we get to teach them that. Where I know I tried to homeschool my own children um, at a time, and I know how frustrating it is. And they were super young, so like first grade, second grade. Finally, I said, "Well, you're going to school," because well, I was teaching anyway. So I said, "Well, you're going to come with me." So um,
So so you could watch them,
right,
right? And that's the
exactly.
beauty of our program is they're still getting those socialization aspects in the manner of how do you work together?
Hmm.
How do you play together?
Hmm.
How do you settle conflicts? But somebody is there with them all the time to work through that,
Hmm.
and that's a point of pride for me actually
Yeah.
with what we do.
Yeah.
Um,
And make no mistake, we let them go. Like
mhm.
sometimes they'll come in and we'll have lunch and the kids for the second half will start coming in and it'll be 12 they're supposed to be there 12:30. But we sit back and know that we have an hour or two, so we have a half an hour leeway for this, and we'll let them just work it out and
Play together.
play and have that interaction to, but very much watched over.
Hmm.
So appropriateness is definitely something that is instilled in them, and how to uh, guide themselves like ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
And so I can't buy into this socialization stuff. I mean, and I never did. Hence me leaving public schools.
Because there's so many more opportunities to get socialization. You know, I guess I fail to see the purpose in it, especially if you're somebody who struggled with the socialization aspect
Yeah, there's a
going through
percent over
school.
there.
And you're just like, I just want to get through my day. I
Mm-hmm.
just want to get through the work. And because I don't know what I'm doing with the rest of these people.
Right.
Um, and I'm sure I'm not unique in that. Um,
No, and
and
those kids usually get bullied.
yeah,
They usually get
or
left out of
pushed around.
pushed around or
Hmm.
put out of the crowd. Where we used to correct that, and actually society used to correct that. Like, my generation would correct bullying. There was no bullying in school with us. There was actually ethics and morals that went to school, and we didn't put up with that. I know I didn't. I know the group that I ran with, we did not, even though we were hellions and things like that. But we were good hellions.
You were the opposite, where you didn't want anything to do with school.
They
You
shouldn't
didn't want to
leave
be there.
listen, they shouldn't have left the windows open in first grade on the first level. You can go like right out the door into the woods in your home. But anyway, yeah, that's that's besides the point.
Well, I mean, do we want kids? That's kind of a good topic that you bring up. Like, when kids start to police each other,
Right.
because I do sort of enjoy, because we're watching them all the time and we're watching them do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I love when the kids start correcting the other kids
Mm-hmm.
in the terms of like leading them to do better things.
Right.
Right. Um, it's a tough line to kind of walk, because it can go awry, right, if it's
Yeah.
not being monitored. But it does get to a point where I have to be like, yo, like, let me teach. Like,
Yeah.
teachers got it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Thank you. But there are certain settings where I really enjoy that moment where the kids are like, hey, man, like, to the new kid, like, no, that's not how we do it.
Well, that
That's
transitions
cool.
out from the classroom to the play area. I mean,
Yeah.
it just there's an expectation. There's an understanding of how that works. We don't like tattletales, okay? In the sense of you're going to work it out and you're going to lead by example.
Hmm.
And when you give them that power to say, "Wait, I have that power to do that in a socialization area and in somewhere of this nature," yeah, because you're all leaders.
Hmm.
You're leading in things. So
How do you use your powers?
yeah, how to use your
Yeah.
powers, and we don't just see it in the elementary; we see it in the middle school too. When they come in from public schools in the middle school, right, or in middle school or even high school, they have this noise in their heads,
Hmm.
this loud noise. Classrooms are loud. They can't study, they can't do this, and they get used to all of this, and then they also have an attitude about what school is, and
Hmm.
some of them are acting, right? And that's not really them who they are. They're just learning how to
They're
survive.
mimicking what they've seen.
They're
Yeah.
mimicking what they've seen and what they're doing to survive.
Hmm.
Okay. And in some senses, okay, I get that. That's okay. In the work areas, you got to do stuff. You got to put on your character hat and you got to go and do those things, right? But to watch them walk out of uh, bad habits or bad understanding of what that is, and look around at all the others who are concerned about where they're going and what they're doing.
Yeah. What focus actually looks like and what
What
success actually
yeah,
looks like.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. it's and they start to fall in with doing the right thing and
Yep.
focusing on the right things. And I
Mhm.
know it's amazing. It's so
Mhm.
cool.
And
And
now
I know that that's possible in the public schools
oh, I do
because
too.
again, as public schoolers, that's what I kind of saw in the classroom,
Mhm.
right? Outside of the classroom is kind of a different
Mhm.
beast. But within the classroom, it w- you I many of my classes that was the expectation, and all the kids kind of fell into line, and it was like, okay, we have something that we need to do um to learn through it. If I had a year though where most of the kids in the room were not taking the teacher seriously,
Mhm.
it was really easy to fall into that line of not wanting to participate,
Yep.
and um it's too bad. It's because I know that it's possible, but I also know that it's not happening, which is amazing because all we have heard about is this push for better socialization
Mhm.
with our kids.
Right.
And what we have exchanged for that is no learning is
Academics
happening.
have just tanked.
Yep.
Tanked.
And
Complete disservice.
what are we willing to trade that so that kids feel like they are free all the time? Because
Mhm.
if kids feel that they are free all the time to be themselves,
Right.
it's going to lead to chaos.
Yeah. And I mean that comes to your leadership in your classrooms and whichever. And again, walking away from that is because I'm a very strict teacher. I was, especially when I'm up with ninth and 10th and even down in the lower grades. You left it at the door in my room. And, even some parents were pushing back on that because they thought that meant no socialization. They're not talking, or that meant some kind of authoritarian understanding of
Hmm.
how that is. No, they just didn't understand that their education was important.
Yeah.
And that was more important because you can't socialize if you don't have education. You just talk about junk.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and there's
And
places for that.
and we know so much of the misbehavior that we see comes from low confidence and low
Yeah.
self-esteem.
Right.
Well, of course, if they can't read, if they're seeing that other kids can read,
Right.
but they can't, it's just natural behavior to resist what's
Hmm.
going on over there.
Right.
And, that's the number one. That's why the teacher's number one job needs to be get these kids educated, and that
Hmm.
means we have to have stricter classrooms.
Yeah.
We're not expecting our teachers to be social workers anymore. We're not expecting them to be therapists. There's other people in place to serve
Right.
those manners. Like the idea needs to be, I've got 40 minutes with you for reading. And for those 40 minutes,
Your mind.
I need yeah, I need you
Hmm.
to be focused
Right.
on that. And a lot of the times kids who are struggling with high anxiety and different mental health, once they can channel all that energy into doing something productive,
Yeah.
we start to see vast improvement almost
Hmm.
instantly, right?
Yeah.
It's just getting them to break into that, okay, let me put my mind somewhere else right now.
Yeah. And I want to say this about our autistic communities. Okay. So, when you and I had worked extensively with autism,
Mhm,
it's one of our major platforms and what we have stepped on.
mhm.
Um, what we found is socialization in this model actually picks up than it did to be suppressed because they are very on. I'm going to stay over here. I'm you know I'm not going to get engaged in the social aspect of it. I'm not going to walk that line. And then you give them education and
Mhm.
you give them a common thing to talk about. And we did poetry, and the school never thought about it. They're like, what, you're going to do a bunch of autistic kids with
Yeah,
poetry and
talent show.
a talent show?
And they said you would never be able to do
They
that.
said I'd never, yeah, right, never be able to pull that off. Well, our first one, kids were actually fainting on stage, right?
Just go pick them up.
Yeah, I'm like, I was a
dust 'em
nurse
off,
for 10 years. Move over.
try it again.
Try it. Right. And the parents were like, holy cow, this is actually working.
Yeah, because they
And
got through it.
that set off with people they would never even have talked to before.
Mhm.
It set off into now they're educated and they're confident in what they have done.
Mhm.
Okay, because they're backed by that basis. And you have to be able to believe in them to be able to push them. And sometimes you need tissue boxes,
Mhm.
and you need to be able to make sure that they're okay. But nobody gets to make fun of anybody. Nobody gets to move down that because they're all in a learning stage, and they're all in that whatever that is, and you support you guide them through supporting that through socialization.
Yep.
Even in your smaller classrooms,
Treating them just like the rest of their peers.
right?
And
Mhm.
even if you know that their reading level is below what everybody else's in the room might be,
Right.
you're still including them in the conversation
Mhm.
of what do you think about this story? And they always give you something, and you go,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. And then you have the other kids play off of that. And, but we've kind of created this culture where they're secluded.
Right.
So
Why?
that's just what they're used to.
Right.
And we kind of try to mimic the act of them being socialized, but really we're just secluding them. We're just trying to do that in a smaller manner. We've had great success with incorporating them with the rest of their peers.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's great. So, in closing, don't let the fear of losing socialization skills in the public school system stop you from looking at other options, especially if your kid is struggling with their academics, because that's not it. As long as they're struggling in their academics, they're not going to do well socially.
They're not confident enough to
They're
do
not
social. They're not
confident
confident enough. And they may act it, but really you're going to see behaviors at home. You're going to see
Yep.
other behaviors that are
You start to see it come out.
You're right. You start to see it come out. And that's usually when I get a phone call.
Yeah.
That's when we get a phone
Yep.
call, right? Oh, they've never been
Mhm.
called from the principal. Oh, they've never been called from here or
Yeah.
there. Okay, well, what does their academics say? They're
Like,
3 years behind.
There's always other ways to socialize.
Yeah.
And it's going to change from year to year anyway, what they're interested in and who they want to be around. So, make sure that those learning skills are in place first. If you're interested in anything that we do at Go and Grow Education Services, check out gogrowtutor.com. Make sure to like our page on YouTube. You can follow us on Spotify. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Annie.
And I'm Kevin.
Leather Barrels out.